All right, our first guest tonight, or today, I keep saying tonight. I guess it's afternoon. You could say it's tonight. It's tonight on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, Why not, Justin? Whatever you need.
Right now.
Make up your own time.
Yeah, right. It doesn't really matter. She runs the restaurant Terra and Vine, which is in Evanston. Great spot. And she's also the host of Check Please on Channel 11. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Alpana Singh. Alpana, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
TJ, when I logged on, you look like Paul Verant. He's a chef.
Sure.
Paul Verant's long lost twin brother.
Wow.
Thank you. I've eaten at Perennial Verant back in the day.
Yeah, I never told you look like him. You guys could be like twins. You should get 50% off when we're allowed.
Wow, you should.
Thank you for being my restaurant agent.
Alpana, how are you?
Is there a doppelganger discount?
What are you up to? How is sheltering in place for you?
I actually am just cooking every single day and testing out recipes. If you look at my Instagram, it's just all food, and I'm recreating. I'm actually taking the Thomas Keller masterclass.
Wow.
And I'm going through every single recipe, and each one can fill a day. And it's just basic things like carrots and asparagus and artichokes, and it's just, there's a reason why he has 3 Michelin stars and I don't.
What an amazing, that's a great idea to do that. Thomas Keller, one of the best chefs.
Oh, no, but you get the discipline, the asparagus. I had no idea you're supposed to remove the nubs from the asparagus. Now I'm going to look for that when I go to a restaurant. You didn't remove my nubs. There's still nubs on the asparagus.
I was going to say, if you're getting delivery from Instacart, I'm not sure they're going to remove the nubs for you.
I learned how to peel a tomato the other day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because,
that's a thing that has to happen. All right.
Peel me a tomato.
Well, I always like talking with you because I always feel like the conversation goes in a thoughtful way, way away from just promoting what either of us are working on. But, for you to be in this situation, obviously you represent and you advocate for the restaurant industry because you're a part of it. You've been a part of it for a long time. As we get closer to May 1st, and a lot of the small business loans seem to skip the Chicago restaurant community, and there's a lot of talk about that. And then at the same time, just, the idea of having to make this change into a new normal. How are your fellow restaurateurs and chefs and people in the industry taking what's happening?
I would say that the word probably describe all of us is probably frustrated. Very frustrated because the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program loan, which we qualified for, our restaurant's not currently open. We have the loan in place. We actually just got funded 2 days ago, which
all right.
Very lucky. But the problem is we're not open. And so we have from now until 8 weeks to burn it off in payroll, but I don't have any payroll to burn because I'm not open. So then that, of course, becomes a loan, which, okay, but then you still have to pay it back. So it's not really a relief effort that's done with the business community in mind. And we're one of the lucky ones because we actually got some money. And so, but if we don't burn it off within 8 weeks, then we have to give it back, or we have to pay it back, yes.
Obviously you're seeing some of the protection orders or the stay-at-home orders being lifted in some of the southern states, and there's the eerie shots of people in restaurants where there's one person or 2 people, and then we've seen what's happened in China and other places where they've gone to new social distancing rules. Is that the point where the restaurant industry's at, about pretty soon you have to open the doors, and when you do, is it going to be
I think what we're all sort of processing right now is the thing that we keep hearing, and that's the problem, is we're trying to make these life decisions with as little information and a lot of hearsay. There's just really not a lot of information. So a lot of it is just kind of, as we're looking to see what's happening in Georgia and Texas and these states that are opening and seeing what they're doing, because it seems like, okay, well, it's going to be some form of that. So for example, in Georgia, the seating is for every 500 square feet, they allow 10 patrons. And so for a 1,000 square foot restaurant, that's 20 people. Now, the problem is, unless you've worked out something with your landlord for rent, you are now trying to pay all of your bills, but at reduced capacity. So you have to come up with another way to recoup that inventory, recoup that revenue. And so for us at Terra and Vine, I was talking to my partner this morning, do we take the bar, because we're not going to be able to open the bar, and turn that into a packaged goods store? You know, do we turn that into like a wine shop, a liquor store, so that people can have the experience to go? So I think that with everything that's going on, there's a lot of sort of thinking on your feet and pivoting in a very fast way to, okay, if we're going to have reduced capacity, then we have to sort of like open up like a grocery. Like I think Stephanie Izard just announced this morning that she's going to open Girl in the Goatsery. It took me a while to get that. And I'm like, oh, no, but that's really what we're going to see. And the other thing is, how long is this going to be? Because, you know, it's almost like if the infection rates go up until there's a vaccine, you got to pull the pandemic plan. You know, I mean, we could get shut down again in December, January. We don't know. And so it just, I think we're just going to have to be flexible and pivot and create a new model of takeaway, delivery, packaged goods, sort of this sort of like hybrid, and reduce capacity until there's a vaccine or adequate testing or adequate tracing.
From your point, I mean, that's terrifying. But is there any part of the innovation of it that stimulates you, that you say, okay, you know what, we have to figure this out. We have to do this. It's obviously our lives are on the line and there's terror involved. But yeah, the idea of you coming up with something new?
You know, actually, I've talked to several restaurateurs about this, and they all said that the thing that they've been most surprised by is how much people love the meal kits. Like Alinea apparently is doing extremely well with the Alinea experience at home. And my friend did it the other night. And first of all, they're like, it's $70 for 2 people, which is not $1,000 for 2 people. Right. Like it's Alinea. And he was showing me the instructions, and, you know, he texted me like the photo of the instructions and how he put together. He's like, yeah, I'm like Grant Achatz. I'm like in the kitchen making Alinea, you know? And I thought, wow, like Alinea probably would have never have done that. But, you know, kudos to Nick Kokonis. And, you know, I mean, he's a wizard, but even his talk reservation system, you know, they're not able to take reservations. So they've pivoted to online takeaway, but these family packages of like, you get 2 pastas, a salad, a bottle of wine, and it feeds a family of 4. You don't have to make any decisions. You just go, I'll take package A, package B, package C at different price points. And I know a lot of restaurant owners like, why didn't I think of this before? Like, this is great. Like, people love it. And so one lady actually said that her customers are like, you're going to continue this, right?
Yeah, right.
And so
that's the question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it's about. I mean, are we going to see a different way that we experience and utilize and consume restaurant food? I mean, is the next move going to be Alinea going to put a drive-through in?
You know, aside from just being incredibly terrified right now, you know, if you remove the emotion from all of this and you just kind of observe the changes that have been taking place. So I was listening to this podcast last night, and this guy said, he's from the tech sector. He said, we have basically undergone 5 years worth of changes in 3 weeks. It's amazing how rapidly people have adapted to Zoom, you know, or webinars, or like doing this. And it's only been like 5 weeks, right? If I told you like 6 weeks ago that you're going to be doing this in your shower, TJ.
Thank you for noticing. Would you like to...
Available for rent.
Like, there's no way. Like, what? We're gonna do a show from my shower, and everybody's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that's normal."
Well, we started piloting this back in December, so we're kind of nothing to do with the virus. It just turned out that because he has such a nice bathroom, right?
My wife makes me live in here. This is a whole other thing.
But from a restaurant perspective, I think that we have to have faith that people can very quickly adapt. You know, there was some concern about, okay, when you go to a restaurant, do you want your waiter to be wearing a mask? I'm like, people adapt very quickly, you know, and if everybody else is doing it, then it just becomes the new norm. I mean, it's part of like the strange dystopian nature of how quickly we can get used to something.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I obviously there's so much, like I said, it's terrifying, but at the same time, I love watching the new normal kind of play out. For you and just you not being someone as, you know, involved in the restaurant industry, just you personally, are you discovering new things about yourself and you know, sort of moving forward, or are you sick and tired and ready to go back to what it used to be?
You know, I would like to go back, but I think also, you know, I'm smart. You know, and I realize like, okay, if wishes could be unicorns, you know, that it's not going to be normal. It's just not. And so it's just kind of like, yeah, I can sit here and like, okay, when we go back, we're not going to go back to what we had on March 16th. We're just not, you know, it's going to be wild before we get there. And so I think that as we slowly absorb You know, I mean, this is, a lot of it is just shocking. You know, if you told me on March 17th, the night we close, like, you're not going to be back until June 1st, I'm like, what? You know, so it's been brought upon us in stages, right? You know, it's like, okay, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks, like, right? And then now it's just kind of like, oh, wait, now you're telling me that this is not going to get probably till next spring and maybe even into 2022. So I think that you have to kind of, like I said, take the emotion out of it and go, okay, how do I pivot for the long term for the next 18 months? And what does that mean for me? And so one of the things that I've discovered is doing these wine tastings on Zoom, on Instagram Live, and connected to an audience that way. And I know a few wineries have been pleasantly surprised as a vehicle to be able to connect to their audience in a very intimate way. You know, and so
I love it.
yeah.
I'd say the one thing also we learned, of course, a lot from you today, but we also learned about the nubs and the asparagus. So I feel like, you know, we've given people a service. Alpana Singh, the restaurateur up at Terra and Vine, and also the host of Check Please on Channel 11, longtime restaurateur, Master Sommelier. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Be well. Stay safe.
Oh, great.